Hello, and once again, we are live with the Modern Mystery School UK and EU podcast and YouTube channel. And yes, it's that time again where we welcome Al into the world of astrology and the Hermetic ray. And this time, I am very intrigued, Al, because somehow the life activation and astrology go together. Can you share more about it?
Oh my gosh, of course. So every time I do an astrology reading, now, increasingly the number of astrology readings that I do, people have already had the life activation. But way back when I was in the beginning of my own, personal practice, I always recommended the life activation following, an astrology reading. And for one particularly good reason. The life activation opens the potential for all the best aspects of your chart to start showing through.
Amazing.
And it's not just that, it's that it also begins a process of correcting imbalances that we can find in the astrological chart. And so on the one hand, yes, it absolutely opens up potential, but it also begins correcting imbalances that are often the areas that we get stuck in life. To give you one example, whenever I do an astrology chart, of course, the four elements are part of that, right? And according to our chart, for the most part, we have elemental preferences. On the odd occasion, I will see someone come in with perfectly balanced or very well balanced elements. But for the most part, we tend to have elemental preferences. And those are the elements of life that we either like to stay in to the exclusion of other things, or are the areas of life that we get stuck in. And when you receive the life activation, a good part of that session is simply balancing out the elemental energies. And of course, why is that so important? Everybody knows about earth, water, air, and fire. But the four elements and our relationship to them are what take something and make it physical. The four elements ground spiritual energies into abundance and manifestation. And where we are out of balance with the four elements, that becomes our stumbling block to manifestation and abundance. And so when you receive that life activation, what happens is your practitioner is there, they're smoothing and balancing out those elemental energies so that the areas that perhaps you haven't been as comfortable with or that you haven't worked with, you actually open up the ability to flow in those areas. And
I was just saying, it's amazing. I mean, I'm like, yeah, I know, it's like, yes, everybody go get one.
absolutely, the whole world needs to be activated. I mean, who doesn't want greater connection to purpose? Who doesn't want their gifts and abilities to show through, right? And the other piece to the life activation that I find so essential in terms of expressing the highest energies of your astrological chart, the life activation builds a stronger bridge between you and your higher self. And so we often have that classic juxtaposition of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, right? And so when we receive the life activation, it's much easier to hear the angel, the higher self. It tends to be soft spoken, right? Whereas that devil is, a little bit like the Tasmanian devil, a little bit louder, a little more in your face, definitely more audible. And so when you receive the life activation and you start hearing the voice of that angel, of your higher self, you can actually start expressing what I would call the more refined or higher qualities of your chart, and succumb less to the misuse of your zodiacal energies, of the energy of your chart, that the negative ego basically does. And so that piece of refining the expression so that it's all positive is really important.
I love this. I mean, it makes so much sense, doesn't it? And especially so many people are, looking at their charts and going, oh, and this and that, and and I've got to be careful here. And what you're saying is actually, go and get this life activation. And we have practitioners in over 40, 50 countries. And there's going to be somebody near you. It's an hour and a half, it's 2 hours. And actually, a lot of those challenges and issues are going to be balanced out and corrected so that they can really get to the nitty gritty of living their purpose and living in joy.
Absolutely. And, not to go too much into the actual technique itself, but when we do that life activation, there are 12 reception points. 12. Think there might be a connection to zodiac signs there?
Could be a clue there, everybody.
And in Empower Thyself, we talk about these 12 dimensional energies, the physical dimensions, which we equate more to states of consciousness, or I kind of liken it to the process of enlightenment, actually. And of course, the zodiac signs have interchange with those 12 dimensional energies. And when you receive the life activation, and we talk about this in the Empower Thyself class, it helps launch you into the top third, of what we call shamanism and wisdom, right? And so, with the life activation, you really start branching out into the lessons of faith, hope, charity, and love, which are Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Amazing. On a higher level. And so when you receive the life activation, it is much easier, and you spend more time in these states of consciousness. And that's what we all want. Usually we wait until retirement, to start going into those states of consciousness. But when you receive the life activation, you can start accessing and living in those states of consciousness more permanently.
It's just truly tremendous, isn't it? Just truly tremendous. I love this. We actually have a Healers Academy coming up, and we're taught. A lot of people are really sensing this because they're wanting to make sure more people can have access to it. If it's family and friends, Healers Academy is where people learn to do the life activation in case you don't know at home, and they spend 5 days learning how to do that. And we're seeing this increasingly, and these are the words that they're using, and they're coming along. So it's very much it's very topical right now.
Absolutely. And the last thing that I want to say about the life activation here, especially in regards to astrology, is that we are receptive to forces. And when you receive that life activation, and even more so when you become a life activation practitioner, you become more sensitive to those forces. And when I say sensitive, I don't mean it's like, oh my God, Mercury retrograde, oh, it's raining down on me. It's not like that. But more so, oh, that's what that is. This is the energy. I'm being impacted by this. How am I going to work with this? And how can I utilize it? Because in the mystery school teachings, know that ye are gods. And the ultimate source of these energies is godly. The ultimate source of astrology is God. And, and God is the dispositor of these energies. And so the life activation helps us to be just as God. Now, are we flowing those energies and being the positive dispositor of them in the same way? Not yet. We got to work our way up there. But the life activation really kickstarts that process of refinement, because up in the spiritual, the zodiac energies and the energy of the planets, it's all positive. There is no negative. But then we come here and we try to take a perfect nature and adapt it to an imperfect world. And unfortunately, there is some experimentation in that process, and sometimes the experiments kind of blow up in our faces.
Just a few times.
Just a few times, on the daily. And so here we are, because astrology is not personality typology. It is about genuine gifts and areas of wisdom that you carry as part of your purpose. And so as the life activation refines your relationship to these zodiacal energies and builds that greater connection to your higher self, they can start to manifest more positively in your life.
I love this. I love it. Well, life activation is my all-time favorite. I know I say that about everything, but it really truly is, because it is the starting point, and to have that deeper understanding, as you've explained, it's just makes so much more, even more sense. I'm sure everybody's going to be very inspired by that, and if they haven't already had a life activation, that and especially all the astrology lovers out there, I mean, my goodness, this is a perfect opportunity to find a practitioner and get ahead of the game, as it were.
And I'm going to say one last little piece here, and this is for all the people who identify themselves as empaths. The life activation is the first tool I recommend. Very often people consult me for astrology because they have uncontrolled intuitive abilities. And empathy can be one of those uncontrolled intuitive abilities. And the reason that I love the life activation, especially for people who are experiencing empathy, and Empower Thyself really takes it to the next level, is because it assists you, in opening up that ability, but in a controlled manner, so that you don't have to experience so many of the negatives that are generally associated with that. And so for those of you who find that you are energetically sensitive or empathic, I would highly recommend the life activation, because you're going to start to feel like you have more of a buffer, that there's more space, that the energies aren't sitting on you, like this.
I was one of those people, so I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah, so was I.
Yeah.
So was I. And the life activation, began a process of change, and Empower Thyself, and the protective rituals you learn, in that class, really took that to the next level for me, so that I wasn't being impacted by things.
Me too. That's amazing. Thank you.
At least not in negative ways, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah. And we're going to be, revisiting and seeing Al again soon. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before we say goodbye?
Well, you know what? Just for a little beauty today, I hope you don't mind if I read to you.
I would love that.
Just a little contemplation, for the love of all the beauty that there is in the universe. So I'm going to read to you from Manilius, which is the oldest complete astrological text there is on the planet at the moment. Maybe they might discover something older. For my part, I find no argument so compelling as to show that the universe moves in obedience to a divine power, and is indeed the manifestation of God, and did not come together at the dictation of chance. Yet this is what he would have us believe, who first built the walls of the heavens from minute atoms, and into these resolved them again. He held that these atoms formed the seas, the lands, and the stars in the sky, and the era by which, in its vast space, worlds are created and dissolved, and that all matter returns to its first origins and changes the shapes of things. Who could believe that such massive structures have been created from tiny atoms without the operation of a divine will, and that the universe is the creature of a blind compact? If chance gave such a world to us, chance itself would govern it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
As we are pure on the macro, so can we be pure and powerful on the micro? And life activation starts that process.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you would like to find a life activation practitioner near you, just visit any of the Modern Mystery School websites. And at the bottom, they have a certified life activation practitioner list. Click on it and you can see who's closest to you, or get in touch with myself or Al and we'll redirect
Happily
you.
direct you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Al. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.